had set the leg, the dog had gotten well, perhaps in time the dog would have run away also. This is life. Life lives itself. Therefore, there is no debt, there is no problem. But we can dramatize these things and make them terribly important. I know persons who had done much less than the old monk and died of a broken heart because the boy didn't support them for the rest of their lives. There was no gratitude in the universe. There was no fairness. I've given everything I had, nobody cares. There's only one thing we give, and that's everything we have. And there's only one reason to give it, and that is because our heart tells us to. And when we are waiting for reward for it, we have desecrated everything. In the Zen philosophy, then, a man going to work works his hours, and works them faithfully, and he doesn't make more coffee breaks than he should. He isn't out to do as little as he can and get as much as he can. If he is a good Zen man, his primary consideration is that the man who employs him shall be fairly treated. And that if a man pays for a certain task, the man who does that task will perform it honorably. These are the important things, not the great question of how many hours or how many nickels. The point is an obligation. When we hire a man, we are obligated. The hirer is obligated to pay. The man hired is obligated to work. If each fulfills his obligation with the right spirit, there is no problem, no dissatisfaction, no hatred, no great conflict between capital and labor. The individuals who work from the heart, who do the things they are to do without regrets, without anxieties, these are the Zen people. They are the people who leave good things after them. And these are the same people who quickly and willingly sacrifice their own pleasure, because they have discovered that when they do, when you sacrifice your own pleasure for a greater need, you suddenly discover a greater pleasure than the one you gave up. For the greater the good that is done, the greater the pleasure in the soul of the doer. Everything is compensated within ourselves, so there is no need to fear. There is no need to worry that others will not recognize our talents. Not important whether they do or not. The only important thing is the talent, for that alone can survive the grave. It is not important whether we are promoted or not promoted. The old monks of the Diamond Mountains of Korea, the Taoist fathers who really inspired the Zen monks of China and Korea, like to live in very remote places. Sometimes an emperor or duke or a great man would come and say to the old hermit, "Father, I need a new prime minister. My country's in a bad way. Will you come and govern us?" And the old Taoist monk says, "Well, first of all, tell me, is this an invitation or is this a job?" Well, the emperor says, "Well, I've put it that way if you want to. I guess this is a job. Well, we really need you." The old monk says, "Well, if there is a need, I will do it. As soon as the need is over, I will retire, because I have no interest whatever in being prime minister of anything. Because all that a prime minister gets is hardening of the arteries. And no amount of reward can pay him for the jealousies which are heaped upon him by the ignorant. But if there is something that needs doing for the common good, it shall be done to the best of our ability. But we want no compensation, we want no honors, we want no recognition and no flattery. In order to do this thing, we must have the help of the imperial house. The prime minister cannot bring virtue unless the emperor requires it. Therefore, the emperor must set the example. The prime minister will administer the state and the people will flourish. But if there's any problem here, if there is any catering to the ministers of state, if there is jealousy and bickering, then run the country yourself. You have no place in it for wise people. This was the opinion of Confucius at an earlier date. So these old monks used to come out of the mountains, run a country for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and then hasten back to their meditations and get over it. They had no interest in power. They had no interest in high office. But they recognized duty. And they realized also that regardless of what the office was, duty demanded they had to perform the action to the very best of their knowledge. There could be no compromise. There could be no sellout. There could be no personal advantages. The only way the wise man could live with himself was to do the best that he could at any moment and at every moment, and let the chips fall where they would. This was the Tao way. Later it became the Zen way. It was the way of cutting completely through the involved and complicated knot of circumstances. But where action is direct, where it is arising from immediate experience, where it leads to immediate experience, where the man says, this needs doing, I will do it, and does it. We then have action without tension. But if the man says, yes, I am called to this particular job, but can I afford to take it? Is the salary going to be adequate? Will I lose more friends than I make? Will my family suffer? Will my own future estate be threatened? Would I be better to do it this way or do it that way? Then the opportunity ends in a conflict of tensions, ulterior motives, self-justifications, and strategies and plots. These are the tension things. Every action that is performed has to be performed because of conviction and because of consciousness. If it is done this way, there are no hangovers. Within this way is probably not to escape all tension, but it is to reduce tension to the minimum. And we can start in with little problems that arise in our own thinking. Get rid of grudges first. There's no time for them. In a world in which atomic fission reigns over all of us, what sense is there feuding with our neighbors? And get over all feelings of self-pity, because they are meaningless. We can be sorry for ourselves forever, and all we will do is dissolve in our own tears. Nothing is accomplished. If we observe that certain tendencies of ours have always resulted in trouble, correct the tendencies. Correct them immediately. And realize that immediate change is the only kind that is possible. There is never a moment where an individual cannot reform himself. There is never an instant in which he cannot destroy the worst habit that he suffers from. One simple stroke of the will, and he is free of the entanglement. But if he struggles with it, it will be like a seven-headed hydra, and every head he chops off, there will be 7 more spring in its place. But by a simple yes and a simple no, the whole structure, a procedure, a formality, a protocol, all these things vanish. Zen is a man of yes and no. When he says yes, he means it. When he says no, he means it. And both answers are unchangeable. This is the end of tension. Decision ends a great part of tension. Indecision promotes it forever. The relinquishing of self, which means to get over all insults and all hurts and all griefs and all grievances, which exist because of the hypersensitivity of self. This is another wonderful aid to getting over tensions. Actually, the person achieves this end by suddenly experiencing the Zen absence of self.